Hello, welcome to African STEM Girl. I hope you're all fine and thank you for joining us today. So, we are going to be building a simple income tax calculator. So, calculators are, especially tax calculators, are common. And for those of us who are actually joining us from Kenya, if you do not know, the KRA, which is the Kenya Revenue Authority, has a page where you can go ahead and check out to see um, how much tax you should actually pay. So I have just landed on that page just because I want to show you. So we'll say we want to be to pay for the month, and this, so there is usually sometimes you can be an individual who pays yearly tax or monthly tax. So you can say the salary that you have. So for example, you can write 70,000. We see how much somebody in Kenya who makes 70,000, how much they are going to be taxed. So maybe contribution benefits. This is mostly if you're somebody who pays NHIF or NSSF. So those are just, NSSF is just a place where you can be paying like your retirement contributions, maybe some money you want to receive after you retire. So, do you have a disability? You can say, personally, I don't. Okay, I think I will just remove the contribution benefits because not everyone pays. Do you have a mortgage? I'll say no. Do you have a life insurance policy? I'd say no. Do you have a home ownership savings plan? I'd say no. So if somebody is earning 20,000 and we calculate, let us see how much they are supposed to pay in tax. So based on the tax, they are going to pay 13,000 and 59 Kenya shillings. So you can now go ahead and deduct that from the 70,000, so that amounts to you maybe receiving like a salary of 56,000 from the 70,000. So the more you pay, the more you earn, the more you pay. For example, if somebody is earning 200,000, you can calculate, you can see. So for somebody earning 200,000, they end up paying tax of 52,059 cents. So and so much for. So that means from that 200,000, there's a possibility they take home at around 148 to 147,000. So we are going to build a simplified version of this. We're not going to make it as to have more details like this, just because of the time constraints that we have. So yeah, so let's get on it. So we are going to be using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We have now built several projects with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We have built a login and a sign up form. We were able to build a stopwatch yesterday. What else have we done? I think actually I've forgotten, but everything is on our YouTube. So just go ahead and check that out, and you'll find all the projects that we have built. So we just need to do one more week of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. I believe by the time we are getting to next week on Friday, you guys will now have multiple projects under your belt. And then the other week, we will start on designing. So I will just close this PE for now. So remember, we are using a tool known as VS Dev Code. So VS Dev Code is an environment that allows us to be able to write our code and to see the results. So it's important whenever we are programming, we are in the right environment, because environments do matter, and we want to make sure that we can be able to see the results of whatever we are doing. So that is why we do that. Okay, so just forgotten to set up something here. List. And also I'm going to see me better. Okay. So I am before I go to my Visual Studio, I have to create the folder that will store all my files. So I'll go to my folder here and I go to desktop. So in desktop, I will go ahead and create a new folder. I will right click and create a new folder known as tax calculator. And I'll create it. So the next thing I'll do is I'll come to this icon here, or now I've gone back to my vscode.dev, and there is this icon which looks like two pages on top of each other. So I'll click on it and I'll select open folder so that I can open the folder that I've just created where I want all my files to be. So I'll say yes, view files. Yes, I do trust the authors. Yes, great. So we have our tax calculator folder now showing up on the left side of the screen. I'm just going to add the necessary files that I need. I need an index.html file. I'll say yes, do save changes. I'll need a style.css file. This is where I'm going to add my styling, and I'll need a script.js file, which is where I'm going to specify the specification or the interactivity of the project. So the index.html file is very straightforward. All it does is add the structure of our website. So you have to think of the structure of our website like the structure of a house. We just like when you're building a house, you have to start with the structure so that you can be able to have something even to add color, that is in terms of painting, and also maybe something that you can add interactivity. Like for example, if you switch on a light bulb, it either goes on or off. To be able to have a place where you can even place the light bulb, you have to have some HTML. So HTML is very important in adding the structure of our website. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'll open an angle bracket, and inside my my HTML, just like building a house, you have to start with the structure. The same thing, it is advisable we do start with the structure. So I'll put an opening angle bracket and exclamation and write doctype HTML. So what this does for me is it allows me to alert the browser where to find the structure of the website. It is important that you guide the browser whenever somebody looks for for your website. They need guidance on where to actually find the structure. So this is what this does. And then we add the HTML tags. So the HTML tags normally behave like a wall, or they enclose all the code that you are going to write. So everything you're going to write is going to be written between these two HTML tags. So this HTML tag is normally divided into two sections. The first section is the head, and the second section is the body. So, I've written body. It should be. Okay, let me just correct that. Body. So the body is the information that, in the head is where you add information that the search engine will use to maybe show your website as a result. I have talked about this in previous videos. And now the body is where it will show the different, where actually the what do we call the website visitors are actually seeing. Everything is written in the body section. But one of the things that you can write in the head sections to make visitors actually know your website exists is the title. Let me just mute my phone. So let me first finish this. So I'll call this title tax calculator. Okay, so what now that does, it gives us an opportunity to be able to whenever we are navigating from one tab to another to 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 actually know which tab we are navigating to or from. So the other thing we can add here is what we call a favicon, but right now I'd just like to move on to, okay, let us add it. There's no problem. Let us go ahead and add it. So a favicon basically is, for example, if you go on Netflix and you right click, you select netflix.com. At the top of the browser, you will see the name Netflix Kenya, and you will also see a logo of Netflix. Let me look for another website. I'm sorry, I'll open YouTube. So if I open YouTube, I see at the top of the browser the name of the YouTube, the title, and I also see the icon for YouTube. What this allows me to do is if I have multiple different websites open, I know where to move. I know if I want to go to Netflix, I automatically see the title and the favicon. The favicon is this icon you're seeing here. We call it a favicon. So immediately I see it, I know, okay, now I am on YouTube. So how do we add the same for our project? So because I am doing a tax calculator, I don't know if I'll find an icon for that. Maybe I can write it. We see if we can get some tax calculator icon. Let us see if we can get something. Okay, I've not written the right thing. Okay, so we have some icons here. Let me see. Okay, they're not that many, and it makes sense for there not to be too many. I think we can pick this one. It's a calculator and it's return tax calculator. We can do that. So I'll click on it. So then the first thing we'll do is to remove the background. So I'll come here and I will type bg remove. The reason why I am removing the background, sorry, remove. The reason why I'm removing the background, as you can see even with these other favicons, there is no like white line behind them, it's just the logo. So we want the same thing. We want to remove this white line and that white color we are seeing. So I'll click here. And when I click here, I'll see the option of paste an image or URL. So I'll click here and I will right click on this image and go and click copy image address. I will right click and select copy image address. So the first thing you have to do is to select the image and then go to copy image address. I'll go to my remove background and go to where to put an URL here to give me a pop-up, and I will paste that URL or that image address we have just copied. Okay, so now it has removed the background, so I can go ahead and download it. So once it is downloaded, I'll find this image once it's written unnamed something. So I'll come to my files. Most of the times when you download something, you normally find it inside the downloads. So I'll come to my files and I navigate to the downloads and I will see it here. It's the first one. So my folder, I created it, my project folder, I created it in desktop. So I'll just drag this and put it inside desktop. And then now when we are inside desktop, I'll go and drag it and put it inside tax calculator because that's the project name I created. While I am here, let me also open this website on the browser. So I click inside the file and go to index.html, right click and say open document folder. So far I can see for my website, I'm sorry, for my website, I can see only the title, tax calculator. I cannot see a favicon. So that favicon is what we are trying to add. So when I come back to my Visual Studio, I find that there is an image that has been added. Oh, there's something I've forgotten to do. Okay, I'll show you. So there is an image that has been added. Even if I click on it, I will see the image. It's loading. Yes, so tax calculator, but this image has an extension of .png. Maybe let me right click to rename this image. I can call it icon. So it has a .png. So whenever you're trying to add a favicon, we normally add it using we add it using a file extension known as .ico. File extensions are very important because even here where we have the HTML code, it is the file extension .html that makes the browser sure that this is a HTML file, and also it allows the browser to process it as a HTML file. .css shows this is a CSS file. This is where you will find the styling. The text in here will be in CSS format. .js shows JavaScript. This is where you're going to find the JavaScript file. This is where the text that is in here is in form of JavaScript. So because I want to add this image as an favicon, I have to use what we call a .ico file. So all I will do is I'll come to my browser and I will actually try and convert it. So we can say PNG to ICO. So the other advantage with ICO, they are normally reduced in size so that because the whole point is you want them to be seen here. So it's normally put in a size that you can be able to comfortably use. So there are so many different websites that give us an opportunity to convert. So you just pick the one that you want. So I'll come here and choose my file. I'll go to desktop because I had already moved this to desktop. Inside tax calculator, I'll find my icon.png. I will open it. And here, so you say PNG2. So you click this to see the different options. So as you can see, there are so many options that you might want to change this to. So for example, right now I want it to be .ico. So I'll just click on ICO and then I'll click this button, return convert. So So it has told me that the conversion is complete. So I'll go ahead and download it. So now, what I will find, since I've downloaded it, is for sure in the downloads. I will drag it and put it inside desktop. And then now inside desktop, I will drag it and put it inside my tax calculator. So now if I go to my tax calculator file in HTML, I'll find that I have a .ico image. And you can see it's already slightly smaller than the PNG. So how now do I add it to my HTML code so that we can see it here at the top? So I'll just go below title and I'll add a link. So a link tag is used to connect to files. So because I'm connecting a .ico and a .html, I am going to use a link tag. The first thing I'm going to use is the word href, which in full means hyperlink reference. What this does is where you store the name of the file exactly as it is. So I'll say icon.ico because that's what I want to be linked here. And then outside this quotation mark, I'll go ahead. So I hope you guys can see my screen clearly. In case of anything, just let me know in the chat section. So after the .ico, the next thing I will come and say is type. So I'll say the type is that this is an image, and it's not just any other image, it's an icon. So we write X icon. And then after that, we come ahead and write, usually type rel. So rel means relationship. So what is the relationship of this file to the HTML is that this is an icon. So if I refresh my browser, I'll see that I can see the calculator icon appearing at the top with also the title. So we are on track. So the next thing I will now move on is to now start adding the structure of my calculator. So let us focus on adding the structure. So the first thing I'll do is I'll create a container that will just have everything inside of it. So I think, yeah, so I'll come here and say div. So here we'll say we want a container. Sorry, my mind has frozen a little bit. A div basically is a container. So in programming, sometimes we normally have containers that normally contain different or a collection of elements that we want to group together. So right now we want to have a container. You can even think of it like, if you see this calculator, you can see it is in everything is is inside this main container, the input part and this small plus signs. So we can do the same. So I'll come here and I will say I can just add a heading. You can say H2 and say income tax calculator. Okay, and then inside now, still inside that container that has everything, we will add the table. So the table tag is used to allow us to add tables in HTML. So we just want to add a table that guides our users on how like the taxes are being calculated. So like I said, we're just creating something simple. So I'll come here and I'll say table. Oh, let me open it and close it. Oh, it's already closed. Okay. And then, so inside now the table, I'm going to add a table row. So when you're adding a table in HTML, there are various ways you can go ahead and add it. You can just go ahead and jump right into using the table rows or adding the rows of the table using the table rows or the tr tag, or you can even go ahead and specify again that this is the table body using the t body tag. It won't make much of a difference, but you might need it in styling, so you can also add that. So we are going to go ahead and add the table row. And the first one, we are going to say table header. We are going to say income tax class. So we can say what is the income tax class. Would be if somebody is earning between 0 and 20,000, what do we want it to appear? And then we add another th where we show the income tax rate. So what now has happened is we have been able to create a small table heading. So if I refresh, I'll see the title. Let me just zoom out. So we can see the title, income tax calculator, and income tax class, and income tax rate. So we'll add more styling to make it look a little bit better, worry not. So we'll continue. So the next thing is now to add those different rates. So for example, we'll introduce another table row, and then now we'll say TD. So TD means table data. So we say from 0, now we can just write from 0 to Kenya shilling. So I've just used a hyphen. 30,000, how much tax should that person make or pay? Not make, pay. We actually pay tax, we don't make tax. How much tax should that person pay? So you can be like 0. So this is a very good system, I guess, because nowadays if you earn 30, there's still some tax you pay. So TD. So here we say from 30,000 to in shillings 60,000. Let me add the TD. I will say this to be 5%. So if that person is earning between that, they make 5%. So we continue with the table rows. So we say TD, so Kenya shillings. So now we can say from 61. Actually, this should not be, this should be 31 because we have 30 here. So now we can say from Kenya shillings 61,000. So mostly they don't write it like this because you can imagine between 30,000 and 31,000, there is some amounts there. The taxman is not that lenient to leave you have around 900 untaxed. So what mostly they come and write is they write 299. The taxman will take up to the last penny, and then now here it will be 30. Oh, sorry. This now here it will be 30, and then this one now will be 699. And then now here it will be, wait, it was up to, so this will be 59. And then now from here it will be 60. Yeah. So we continue. So from 60 up to we can say 89.99. We want them to be charged how much? So this one we can say 10%. So we are just using our own rates. These are not the Kenyan rates. I assure you it is not this low as we have just seen, TD. So we'll say Kenya shillings. So this now will be from 90,000 all the way to Kenya shillings. We can put 119,999, and then we can put TD. Maybe we can say 15%. So I write TR. I was listening to a video where Elon Musk was saying he has paid up to 10 billion in tax rates. So this is very little money. So to say Kenya shillings, 150, I can say 149,999. That's an extra 9. So you write TD. You can put, TD. We'll put 20%. Yep. Okay. It keeps. Okay. So we'll do the last one where now if you're above that tax bracket, just pay this standard. So we can say Kenya shillings 150. We say Kenya shillings. Oh, we say income above 150 because we can't, there's only so much we can be able to imagine in terms of the income. Income above 150,000, how much do we want them to pay? So we can be like, we want them to pay 30%. Okay, so we do have that now. We have a sort of structure or a place where users can get information of the different amounts they are going to pay. So if they want like specific amounts, we can now, that is where our calculator comes in. So after the body tag, after the table tag, I'm just now going to continue and now add a form where users will put in their salary and we'll put a button where now they will get the result. So we can be like form and then we create a div inside of it, and then inside that div we'll give this a label. So a label will just be able to guide our users what they are supposed to put in. So we'll say annual. So we can write, I think there's a problem with my keyboard. Enter your annual or monthly income. And then after that, the other thing we're now going to put is the input. So the input is where they're going to actually type in. So we can say we want the input to be of type number. There are different types of inputs. You can specify, maybe if you're capturing emails, you can say input to be type email. If you're capturing date, you can put input to be type date. If you're capturing time, even month, week, there are so many types of inputs. So just make sure if you want a resource that shows you the different types of inputs. Leave your email in the description box. There is a link there. Click on it, leave your email, I'll send you a resource. Today I'm actually sending a resource on Computer 101. So I realized that many are not fully familiar with the different parts of a computer, the different parts of a motherboard, which those different parts, what do they do? So I have written something that I am going to release later on today. It's absolutely free, and I'm going to send to the emails that are in the description. And yeah, so make sure you do. So the other thing, I'll come here and I write, you can add a placeholder. So a placeholder is just text that people can see inside the input box. So we can be like, we can enter. You can even use it to guide people on how to put in the instruction or what they should write. So you can be like, enter your monthly or annual income. Ama we can, because you already have a label saying that, we can write ensure, and we can be like, don't add commas. So most of the times, especially when you're dealing with input type number, you don't want your users to put a comma. You can write additional code such that if a user puts in comma, something, it ignores the comma, or you can just alert them, do not use commas. You can write, do not use, other than using the word add, like do not use commas. So let us look at how that label and input looks like. So as you can see now, we have a place where people can type in their values, the input, and it shows us the title, enter your annual. In case you cannot see, let me zoom out. So it says enter your annual or monthly income, and it has a place where people can actually type in their values. So great. So we have been able to add a label and to add an input. So the next thing we're going to move on is to add a button that people can click and submit now and submit to get a response. So we can come here and we can just put a div, and we can say button. Oops. Sorry, making some mistakes that do not make sense. So let me just space out this div so you can easily see. So I've created a new div and I'm going to add a button. So there's also a button tag. However, there's also an input type submit that also adds a button. So it's whichever you want. So I can say type is equals to submit, and then I can say calculate. I can click calculate my tax. Maybe that's what the button will say. Not even maybe that's what I want the button to say. So if I refresh, I see my button here, calculate my tax. But right now it does not do anything because we are yet to add interactivity. We are yet to add the JavaScript side. So let us move forward and now add our CSS. CSS will make this to look more organized, to look more appealing, and just in an organized way. If my colors or whatever I'm doing does not sit right with you, feel free. CSS is very it's all about what you feel like adding. So just make sure you add whatever you feel like adding. So I'll show you how to add different colors so you can do this on your own. So the first thing we need to realize is we have a file known as style.css. So ideally that's where we are going to add our CSS, which now allows us to be able to add styling. So inside our index.html, we have to make it aware that the styling will be found in the style.css. To make the HTML file aware, you have to connect those two files. To connect them, we go back to the head section and we add another link tag. So remember I said the link tag is frequently used to connect a HTML file to another file. So I'll come here and I'll say href, and I will write my file name exactly as it is. So this is style.css. So that is the name of my CSS file. So I will now have style.css, and then I have type to be is equals to text slash CSS. So this allows us to be able to see the text that is actually on the file to know that it is going to be CSS text. And then now we finalize with rel, which means what is the relationship between those two files, that this is a style sheet. And then after that, we enclose it. So now what we have done, we have connected our HTML to our CSS. So we can move on now to the CSS and now start styling it. So the first thing I'll do immediately is, so to style a HTML element on CSS, the first thing is you have to give your HTML file what we call class names. So that's the only way the CSS or the CSS will know exactly what you want to add color to. So think of it this way. If you are given, or if you guys are building a house and then your mom is like, okay, everyone select the color you want your room to be painted. So everyone selects it. So they will say, for example, I can still have somebody known as Ernest here. So they can be, maybe Ernest will be like, okay, I want my room to be green, jungle green or something, or black. So they will identify Ernest's room using his name, and also they'll make sure that only his room is black in color. Maybe nobody else wants black. So the same thing here. We have to add what we call class names to allow us to be able to select HTML elements and style them accordingly. So the other name of even those class names is something we call selectors. So I'll come here and I'll say class container. So what this allows me to do is we can write, okay, we can just leave it as container. I really don't like that name because it's good if the name is a little bit descriptive. So we can maybe write calculator, because what is it containing, so it's good at least you have some description. So we can write calculator, we can put 2 underscores and write calculator container. So now I'll come to my style.css and I'll say .calculator container. So I'll say maybe I want it to be a particular width. So I can say the width of this calculator container, let it be like, you can say 25%. So, okay, I'll show you what we're going to do next. And then I can give it a background color. Let me first give it a background color. So even in the previous videos, I've said there are several ways you can add a color in CSS. You can add a color just by writing the word black, the name of the color. So I have to put a semicolon here. So You can add a color using the name of the color. For example, you can say, I want it to be black, or you can use a color picker. So you can come here and select color picker. So like for me, I am sure black will be too dark. So even if you look at this, most dark modes are not usually black. It's just a particular shade of black. So if I come here, I can drag this circle and I can get a shade that most probably I want. Maybe I can stick with that. And when I pick that shade, I see several values here at the bottom. So we have the hex, which shows the value of the color in hexadecimal. So hex just means 6 values. So most of these numbers are normally a mixture of numbers and colors. I mean, numbers and letters at some point, but this one, all of it is numbers. You can see RGB, CMYK, HSV, and HSL. So those are also other ways you can add that same color, other options. So I just pick the hex. I'll just click this to copy, and I'll come to my HTML, and rather than now using black, but maybe before I change it, let us refresh. We see how our website is looking like so far. So it is completely black, as you can see. So I can come here and I'll say, I'll just change that to a particular shade. It's not too black, it's just slightly a different shade of black. So as you can see, it looks like that. However, my remaining document, it is very, very white. So to make that to be black as well, I'll just move this down slightly. The reason why I'm moving it is the body tag encloses all these other tags, so it's just good to go in an orderly fashion. So I can come here and say body to have, it should be curly brackets, body to have a particular background color. So I'll also go ahead and pick a different shade of black, maybe slightly darker, because it is the whole body. In comparison to that, which was just the form, I can choose that. So I'll just click and I'll paste it. And if I refresh now, the whole body is now black in color. So we've been able to make it to be black. The other thing, okay. So the other thing I might want to add is maybe to position this income tax calculator at the center. I don't want it to be too much at the top left as it is right now. So I'll come here and I will add a display. The display, I'll say to be flex, and I'll say flex no, not flex. I will now say align items to be center. So I won't see much difference now, but let us just refresh, we see. So it's just looking like that. Whenever we say align items to be center, we mean let it to be aligned to the vertical, to the center of the vertical. For us to see it in the middle, I have to say that the body has a height. I have to define the height. It's not the code just can't assume you mean a particular height. So in the body, I'll come and say height, to be 100. So I can write 100% or I can write 100 VH. It's not going to make much of a difference. I hope I'm not lagging. If I'm lagging, just let me know. So now you can see it is vertically aligned in the middle. So now we want it to be horizontally aligned. We want to see it here in the middle. To do that, we'll come here and now we will say justify content to be center. So now it is now at the center of our body, so which is what we wanted. However, the elements in here, they seem to be not well organized. So the first thing I will do is I will add a space. No, I will first start by adding a border radius for this container here. So the border radius will allow me to have some curved corners at the corner of my container. So I'll come here. So inside my calculator container, I can come here and say border radius. So we can give it a particular value. So you can say 12px. So if I refresh, you can see now it's no longer doesn't have sharp corners. We can add some border shadow, some box shadow. I have really talked about box shadows in the last few sections and what they do. So maybe just to give a quick overview. Okay, so I hope I'm not losing my voice. So to give a quick overview, we'll write box shadow. So there is this. Let me just scroll down. There is a particular link that I normally click, and it takes me to that box shadow. But remember, so maybe to specify, the box shadow, the height does the height, and the V does the V. Oh my God, guys! I think I'm having a small issue. Just give me a small second. Just give me 5 minutes. I grab a glass of water. Okay, so I'm back. I hope you guys can hear me clearly. Yeah. So when you're adding a box shadow, there are several values you have to make sure that you're adding. The first one is what we call the height, the vertical. So the vertical is so you have your height and you have your vertical. So you have what we call the blur, the spread, and the color. So there is a link here I want to show you that the good thing is that they visually show that property properly. So let me just open that. So yeah, so there it is. So when you look at this box shadow, several things will stand out to you. The first one is that first of all, by default, the color is black. However, here they have just written box shadow 10px and 10px. There's nowhere they have specified color. So by default, it adds a black color. So you have your 10px vertical and your 10px. So we can see that being added. You can now come ahead and specify if you want to be a different color apart from black. From black, you just now go ahead and specify. So here we can say box shadow 10px, 10px light blue. So that is what has been added. So the next thing is maybe you don't want this blue to be so sharp. You go ahead and specify what we call a blur effect. So we come and say to be 10px, 10px, and then 5px. This 5px is what adds that blurriness that you're seeing here. The color is not as sharp, and then you put your color. And then we have what we call the spread. So the spread is maybe you want the shadow to be a little bit, to spread out a little bit. So you do that using, you add that after the blur. So there is a format of adding it. There is where you put the height and the vertical and the height, and then now you have the blurriness, and then you have now the spread and the color. So you have to follow that approach. So let me just drop this link in the chat section. Can see you guys are really chatting up. So use also the resources I'm putting in the chat section to understand what is being done. So it is there in the chat section. So I am now going to go ahead and add a box shadow in this particular container we have. So I'll come here and I'll say box shadow, and I'll pick particular values. So I'll say 0, 10px, 25px, and I'll give a particular color that I want. So you can come here and choose a particular color you want. So you're still using the color picker. I'll pick that, I'll copy it, and then I'll go ahead and add it and do it like that. So when I refresh this is how it's looking like. So it has added that shadow effect. The next thing we can do is we can say the text can align at the center. So to make that any text inside the calculator container to align at the center. So if I do that and I refresh, we see now the text automatically aligns itself at the center. We can change the color of the text, but we can do that later so that each part has its own color. The next thing we can add here, we can add some space around so that it is not too much on the edge. So we can, and to add that space around, we call it padding. So we can put a padding of like 20px. Let us see how that will look like. Yeah, so at least we now have some spaces around the container. So the next thing is we have here a heading. Oops. We have a H2 heading here. So we can now try and style it. So we can come here and give it a class, and we say tax, we can call it tax heading. So I'll just put 2 underscores, and I can come here and now style it. So I can continue and say dot tax heading. The color, I can, so remember currently it is black on a almost black transparent, so you might want something that a little bit lighter. So I can come here, guys, can you focus? So I'll copy this and I will be able to paste it. Okay, so now if we refresh this, we see income tax calculator showing up very well. So yeah, so let me see, is there any other element? Near the heading. Okay, there is none. So we are good up to that point. So the next thing I will do is I'll try to style the table. So we do have a table here. This table. So I'll give it a class so I can style it. I'll call this tax, maybe I can call it tax info because it gives information about the tax. And then I can come here and say sorry, let me just make sure I can see my screen well. Okay. So I'll say dot tax info. So now we can go ahead and add several things. So the first thing I'll do is I'll add a width. The second thing I will go ahead is I'll say let the text to align left. So let us see how that will look like. Left. Let us see how that will look like. So yeah, so the text inside the table. So remember, we are now dealing with the table. So I can change the color. So I can give the same color we have in our tax heading. So I can be like color. So remember, whenever you want to change text color, you just write color, and we do not write color with a U. We just write color as such. Wait, that's not the color. That is black. Hashtag C, not that one. So I've just picked the same color as I have for the heading. So let us see how that is looking like. Okay, that's not so bad. So I'll go ahead and now add I'll go ahead and now add a border. I think I'll just add a small border. So we can say the border width to be 1px, not too much. The color, so we can say border color. So we can make it almost to be the same color as maybe one of the light colors we have there. Let me put a border style, then we see how it's looking like. So there are different types of border. So there is dotted, dash. So for now, I'll just choose solid. And I will refresh that. So we have a particular border that has been added. So the next thing is I will now try and start editing the table data. So remember we had table data. So we can try and now add the borders in there. So we can come and say in the table that has a class of tax info, anything that has a TD, let us give it a particular styling. So we just style it at once. We style all because there are several TDs here. So to just tell them all at the same time, how do we go about it? We come here and say dot tax info TD. So we come here and we say border. So we can add almost the same values we had here at the top. This one's the border width, the border color, and the border style. I can just copy that and put them here. So let us see how now that looks like. So we can see automatically we have added a border in all the elements. So if maybe you don't we can leave it like that, or however you want it. We can also add some padding around in this table data, so we can have some padding. So I can come here and say padding. So padding is the space around an element. We can put maybe like 2px. Let us see how that will look like. So padding is the space around these words. So if I refresh, it has changed, but not that much. Maybe we can increase that from 2 to 5. Yeah, so we can have it like that. And this way we can prompt it to increase the size of our income tax calculator a little bit. So I can come here and at the top where we have the container, we had put it as 25%. We can add that to 35%. So if I refresh now, yeah, so we have our table is taking shape. So the next thing we are going to do is to go straight to this part where somebody is putting up the input and that button. So if you remember, we had a form here where somebody would enter and all that. So let us see how we can be able to make sure that that is added as we expect. Okay. So the first thing I will do, if I look at this, let me look at this form, how it's looking. So the first thing we will do is most probably give it like a flex, so that these are on top of, they're on top of each other rather than being side to side. So I'll come here and I come to my HTML. So we have this, inside the form, we have a container that has the label and all that. So I can come here and I can say class to be form input. Let me just give them a class at once. So I have form input and here I can say form button. So I can say class to be form button. So 2 underscores. And then here I can just leave it as form, or I can just say class. Let us make use of class. So we can say tax form. So let us go step by step. So let me start with the tax form, because this table and this input, they're really like they're so close to each other. So let me put some space. But because this is a whole other HTML element, and this is another HTML element. We use margin to give space from one HTML element to another. So I'll come here to tax form. I'll come to my style, and now first in my tax form, I'll add some margin. So I'll say dot tax form. So I'll say some margin. I can say margin top because maybe if I only want to edit the space here at the top, because it is only that it's only the top part that is next to this table. So I can do that. So I can come here and say maybe 20px. So let us see how that will look like if I refresh. So you can see now it has added some space, right? So if you feel like that is still not enough, you can go ahead and increase. So the next thing in that tax form, do I need to add anything else? I think for now we can leave it like that. Let us move on to the form input. So I'll come in and say dot form input and say I want this form to have a display of flex. I want the flex direction to be column. Let us see what this does to our form. If I refresh, you can see now they are literally on top of each other. However, this part for the input is too big, so we can reduce that as well. We can come here and we can give it a width. We can say inside the form input there is an input, yeah, or we can give the whole container a width. So it's depending on how you want. So we can just give this a width, that's no problem. So we can come give this a width of like for our whole container, it is how many percent? Give it 35%. So out of that 35%, how much do we want it to be? So we can say maybe to be 50%. So remember, it is so out of that 35, maybe we want half of it. So it looks something like that. Okay, half of it looks a little bit smaller. We can reduce that to 70. Let me refresh. Oh, 70 is too much. Let's do 60. Yep, we can stick with 60 or we can do 55. Yep, like that. So we can, because this is flex, we can come and say justify content to be center, so that rather than it being aligned here to the center, it's somewhere here in the middle. So if you refresh, oh sorry, that will not work. We have to, because we have already given it that width, so it's occupying the whole width. So I'll have to see my form input is inside the tax form. So the tax form is what I will give it a display of flex. And I say the justify content to be center. It's also important we just say the flex direction, but let us first see, so that I say why I'm talking about the flex direction. The reason I'm talking about the flex direction, you notice now the button is next to this part for the input. So that is where we now add, that is why I was saying we say the flex direction to be column. So if you refresh, it looks like that. So we need now to say that the width of that tax form is 100 35%. So it's 100% of the 35%. So if we refresh, wait, it's not picking it up. Right and wrong, center, justify, center, column. Okay. And then if the screen has frozen or what has happened, let me try. What happens if I remove that? Oh, okay, so it's a me problem. Like it's my code problem. Let me remove this width here. And I come here and I refresh. Okay, but this input is still too big. So I think I just need to style the input separately. Because if I put a width here, it is not picking it up. So I'll come here and I'll say dot form input. So inside the form input, go to where there is an input. So I put a space and say input, and then now I say the width of that. I want it to be, maybe when you can say 500 px. Okay, 500 is a lot, but let us see. Yeah, 500 is way beyond 300. I meant to put 300. I don't know why I wrote 500. Okay, it's becoming smaller, but let me say this to be 200. Okay, I think we can stick with that. Then you can make it smaller, about 100. Okay, I think we can leave it at that. But it's aligned to the left. So we can come here and say justify items to be center. I don't know why it's not working as I expect. What am I missing? Anything I have added? But I don't think it's that, because that's in the tax information. Can we give it a height maybe? But I don't think it's even the height, because the height is something totally different. And I am trying to edit the width. Oh, no, let me remove that height. It's definitely not the height. What am I missing? What am I missing? What have I written wrongly? Display. Okay. Tax form. Okay, I will figure it out. Let me see from my notes. I'll figure it out. So that is what we have up to there. So we have now our tax and all that. Yeah. So the next thing we are going to add is styling to our form. Okay, let me see if I can. Just a minute. I'll be right back. Um, so I have just lost power. I'm going to double check on that. I think we will continue from there tomorrow. I mean, not tomorrow, on Monday. So see you on Monday. Bye bye.